Under analysis are some of the requests, both in general and from commissioners over the last several months as we've been talking and getting ready for the budget development process. A few items of note is that we do not have the property appraiser's assessment yet. That will not be made available until June 1st. There's also the property appraiser's certified roll that will happen on July 1st. So there's still a lot of information that we don't have yet to be able to put the recommended budget together. There's a few other items that we'll go through tonight that have popped up in terms of items on our capital improvement list that have been taken care of from insurance versus what we still have to pay for out of pocket. So there's just a few moving parts, not to mention we haven't had the state revenue estimating conference yet. We don't know what the sales tax revenues are going to look like. But in order for us to move forward with giving staff direction to put their budget requests together to submit to my office so that I can prepare my recommended budget for you, I wanted to get a feel from the board as a whole of what direction we're heading with this budget development. That way, when I do make my recommended budget to you, it's something that you can live with, that you're proud of, to work through, and that we're not starting completely from scratch. So tonight is to frame the conversation. No hard decisions are being made about millage rates or anything tonight. That will come up at the first meeting in July when you set the trim notice at the not to exceed rate. So you have time to discuss all of that amongst yourselves as well, although that is one of the priorities that we would like to hear from tonight about which way should we go in building the budget in terms of millage rate. With that information, I'll entertain any questions for me. If there are no questions, then I'll yield the floor to Ms. Jennifer Davis.
Okay, so I apologize that this is so dark and gray, but
Jen.
this is
Sorry.
This is information that you have had in previous years. This is just going and showing.
Would it help if you turn the lights out?
Steve just tried that. It's just this one slide. The rest of them, I think you'll be able to see okay. And so there's a millage analysis from 04 and 05 to where we are now, showing our current millage rate at 8.4909. That brings in a little over $16.2 million. And just showing from, where we had all the budget cuts back in from 07 to 11, we're still operating cumulatively about $1.3 million less than we were as far as cumulatively with all the increases that we've done over the last few years. And then this is basically the same information, just graphed. This is just a refresher, not to belabor it, just to kind of go into where we were, where we've been, and then where we are now for illustration purposes. To repeat a little bit of what Charles said is this is very overview. We are just looking for direction. We are not getting into a whole lot of weeds from our part. We'll listen to what you want to talk about today. Ad valorem revenue, we will not know until June 1st and then again till July 1st. Our current millage rate is 8.4909. Our population is 38,370. Currently for this year's budgeting purposes, those numbers will come out in late June or July with the revenue estimates from the state. We do know that our Medicaid is going to increase an additional $130,000 this next year. We don't know what insurance cost will be, and we do know that the retirement rates will increase 0.34% from prior year. Another item that I didn't get on here that I just got this afternoon is medical examiner dollars. They estimate every year what our bill's going to be for next year, and it changes, but they're estimating it to be an additional $100,000. It's based off of number of autopsies they perform, and last year we had 54 autopsies, and it was up from prior year. So they base each year off of the prior year's number, so that can change.
You said $100,000?
Yes, sir. And we balance the general fund and the final forfeiture fund together. So if we have any kind of shortages, for example, in the final forfeiture fund, we have to get that as a transfer in from the general fund or for some other fund. So it's important to note as part of this conversation. So Charles sent you out a memo last week regarding his priorities, and there's 7. And Charles, do you want to go through those, or would you like me to address them?
Well,
or-
I can cover that. So the
Okay.
previous year priorities from a very similar workshop to this one that we're having tonight, that we used to develop the 2016-18 budget process, if you all recall, was the first priority was to balance the budget, enhance, maintain levels of service at the same millage rate. Second priority at that time for last year was a cost of living adjustment for all employees. The third priority was to begin the process of identifying methods to upgrade and replace the jail and courthouse as needed. Fourth priority, continue to update the ambulance fleet and regular vehicle fleet. The fifth priority, rebuild general fund unrestricted reserves. Sixth priority, fund the road resurfacing and improvement program. That was year 2 of 12. And the seventh priority was to repair and maintain county facilities at the appropriate levels of care, no longer minimum levels of care, which would then require a reduction of the general fund reliance on the capital improvement sales surtax to balance the overall budget, which that current split now is about 40% for capital improvement, 60% for general fund. Did I say anything incorrect there, Jennifer, on the 60-40? And the analysis section requests, which are denoted REQ, and this is just based off of the consideration that we've had and conversations we've had over the last several months, is to look at replenishing the disaster relief funds, which I know we're getting at to a lower balance level due to all the bills associated with Hurricane Irma. The second request is to improve specified facility projects such as the Clewiston Health Department, our county sub-office. And the last has been on our radar ever since the dedicated revenue expired I think 3 years ago now, for the Economic Development Council, which is a commitment of $75,000 a year. Commissioners have discussed very frequently in the last few meetings about the number one request was to look at a reduction of the millage rate going to the rollback rate, or as much as 1 mil, which would be about a $1.9 million reduction to general fund. The second commissioner's topic was to ensure appropriate operational resources and staffing levels, in particular in planning and zoning, engineering, code enforcement, and facilities, and to look at the utilization of privatization or outsourcing as appropriate, but to look at balancing out those service sector areas. And the last commissioner request that I have written down is consider bidding various services out, such as our health insurance, liability insurance, et cetera. That has not been done for some time. That is a very large requisition operation. It would require quite a bit of staff time to put those services out to bid, but we have not done that for many years. I want to say 5 to 7 years since the last time we bid out our insurance. None of this has a fiscal impact as of today. We've not done an analysis on that yet. We would love to hear your priorities of what we need to dive into. And again, this is to set the framework for Jennifer and I as we go through the independent department and constitutional's budget requests and begin to make a recommended budget for you to consider over the next few weeks.
P4, are we still financing?
Yes, sir, we had to finance, and so it's there on payment methods. Jennifer, do you have the?
So every year, so what we've done is every year we get a new ambulance, and so we were in like a 5-year cycle. So then whenever the last one gets paid off, then it's time to redo another one. Something in addition to that, just last week, we have what we call spares, but they're for when we have breakdowns, but also for what we call special detail, when we have more than our regular crews, when people are paying for a crew to be somewhere. And we have a couple of those that we think we might be able to trade in and get a newer one to try to help. So that might be something that comes back separately from this discussion as far as the 5-year cycle.
So when's the 5-year cycle up?
Well,
I mean, is it close?
one of those days. Okay, I'm sorry. So the way we've structured it is we will always, so where one falls off, we'll pick up one the following year. So we'll keep our fleet on a cycle where we won't get into the same situation that we were in several years ago with replacing ambulances.
Okay, and then P6, that's not gas tax?
That is gas tax, sir.
But it shouldn't even be on here.
That was a priority of the board 2 fiscal years ago, and we want to make sure that it is still the priority of the board to continue funding that program.
Well, as long as it's out of gas tax, then.
Well,
But it may be something that the board wants us to redirect those funds to something else. Maybe you don't want to do that paving program again.
Well, I think we still got enough paving to keep us going for a lifetime.
I don't disagree, sir, but it's an option for the board to discuss.
And P7, isn't that going to come out of the 1 cent sales tax?
Yes, sir. Again, that's on a 60-40 split right now. We're still 60% dependent on that to prop up the general fund. 40% has been moved into capital improvements, which is a success story in and of itself over the last 2 years. We still have more work to go, though.
Can we get that up to 100%?
Depending on the will of the board and what that 60% denotes in value.
Then to cut 1 meal would be 1.9.
Approximately, sir. Yes, sir. At today's value. Not on the projected estimated value.
Then planning and zoning, do they have enough income to pay for that?
Pay
Well,
for
if they have extra help, do they have, can they fund it?
revenue streams, and planning and zoning is not one of the, it can never be an enterprise fund, and oftentimes it does operate at a general fund subsidy, meaning that it runs at a deficit. So that we do project revenue coming in, but we've had years in the last 5 years where they've not made those revenue projections because the applications have just not come in. Now, we've had the same staffing level for my tenure here of only 2 individuals within planning and zoning, and we do outsource quite a bit of that work for special projects through the contractors. I believe we have somewhere around $50,000 a year that we put into professional services to help offset some of that expense. So it's not a head count. If we were to look at any additional sources within planning and zoning, it would be in that professional services line item. I'm not advocating for adding another staff person.
And if you, when you talk about bidding health insurance and stuff, that's a big job.
Yes, sir. As I said, it's been several years since that activity took place, and market may have changed to our benefit. It may not have. But if we're going to dedicate staff time to it, I would like to know that it's a priority of.
and I think it's a priority. I think that it's a great idea. I think there's going to be some wins to be had there. And we've had multiple conversations, at least I have with staff and with Charles, that there may be some other bigger wins there if we can identify some facilities that we maybe could break off of that, insure, low insure, not insure at all, to just get off of that and split some of that up. So I believe that staff has already got some directions and great ideas of ways that we could realize some real cost savings there. And that's where we really, truly could see some wins without having to collect another dime, just by simply doing business a little bit differently outside of the box. So I truly would like to see that happen.
And we're going to continue each year to lose in Medicaid, right? It's going to continue to go up.
Yes, sir. So we're done with paying the arrearage that we had to pay for 5 years. That fell off this year, so we actually saw a savings in the current year budget by, I believe it was about $110,000, but then next year, the projection of just the current portion, nothing that we've already taken care of, the old balance is going to be an increase of, I think it was $130,000.
So even though you paid it off, you're still going to be increased?
Yes, sir.
No, that's not what she's saying. What she's saying is that we've paid off our past due bill. We had a 5-year cumulative number that was, an exorbitant amount. But we negotiated, if you will, a timeline associated with that had a chronological sunset associated with it. That has now expired. That bill is no longer in existence. But with the new amount of enrollees that are coming online, there's going to be a $134,000 increase into the total number that we've already budgeted for. With that being said, Mr. Chairman, what I would ask is adding no staff time really internal, but asking the state, is there any desire to revisit this issue? Are they going to engage in the federal buy down, if you will? That's probably not the correct phrase, but an acceptance of the federal dollars that are going to be coming in. That was a flavor of the day moment where Governor Scott was just putting a flag in the ground saying, we're not going to take these federal dollars because we're going to stand on principle. And then the entire legislature 100% agreed in lockstep with that. I think that step has, that feeling has kind of softened a little bit. I think we're talking about 2.5 million, but it may be a way bigger number than that of Floridians that aren't receiving medical benefits, but the tab is still being ran. So I think there may be some more juice in the room on that discussion and trying to see as it plays out. I'll also remind you that as related to all of the 35 counties of the Small County Coalition, to buy down the entire group to the state was like 16 million. I mean, it was some nominal number to the grand budget. And the legislature could have done it, but they knew that if they did that, then they set themselves up for the rest of the big horses in the state. The other side of that discussion is that we're per capita the highest percentage of Medicaid recipients in the state of Florida. Out of 67 counties, we're number 1 and or 67, however you want to phrase it. So, we need to look into that, and I want to make sure, just as we checked the last time. I mean, I think it was 80. It was plus 80%. I remember you looked at it, Coach, and I remember you looked at it, Jennifer. It was plus 80% was from our nursing home population, and it was it was one demographic that was running that tab up. So I'd like to see and make sure that's still where it is, and just look at that and check with ACA to see if all of the methods of how those dollars are being arrived at are still the same, or if anything's changed in that metrics. Correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Chair. I believe that we set up that insurance task force, if you will. We had a group of professionals from the community at no cost to the county that engaged the discussion of insurance. We were told by PRM that we had the greatest magic coverage on the planet. We essentially do. There is no correct formulary associated with how all that arrives at it, but it is. I mean, it's a stellar plan. But with the stellar plan comes a pretty hefty price tag. But Jennifer, was it 10 years ago or was it 8 years ago that we just went to the table? We never actually bid it, and we pulled $1.3 million, I think, off of the total price tag. I think just opening up this discussion is whether the market is hard or soft, irrelevant. It's going to change the numbers, and I would just say I don't think that this board is posturing. I think that this board is ready to go to market. I know that there's a lot of vendors that didn't even exist 8 or 10 years ago that are now in insurance. They're servicing. And the only thing I would caution us on is that, and I hope that every county employee can hear me when I say this, we don't want to reduce the packages that you're receiving in a health benefits plan right now. We are very cognizant of that, and I'm not meaning to speak for my colleagues, but I know Ms. Burr and I know these other gentlemen, and no one up here is wanting to reduce the package that we have. And I think that, before the blood pressure gets up in the room, we're just simply wanting to look at that. We've got to turn over a handful of stones to see what is out there. So I just want to caution everybody, because it seems like the few times, and I think it's only been 3 times that we've really had a heart-to-heart discussion about this, it seems like a tremendous amount of misinformation gets out there to our employee base, and it is, regardless of your face, we're trying to cut off your nose to save $1, and that's not what we're talking about. We're cognizant of where everyone is on their insurance programs right now, Charles. We understand how sensitive of an issue that is. People are paying mortgages. People are buying vehicles. People are putting kids through college based on what they have to pay on that budget. And so we're well aware of that, but I do concur with what Commissioner Harris said. I think it's time to look at that, and with what Commissioner Swindle said. So I would just challenge you all to say this. I don't think it is. I mean, I know it's a lot of staff time, but really, Ms. Davis, I would challenge you with, it's a lot of staff time. It's not as much staff time to pull up what is our current level of service, and then throw it out there. PRM, what are you going to do? Okay, now X, Y, and Z, what are y'all going to do? And we're not changing up, and it isn't, show us what the numbers are. And then to Commissioner Swindle's point, that's where I'm going to use this word. I'm not going to use that word. I'm going to use a different word. I loathe the process that PRM has with regards to, we have to have a backstop and a fence insured at a magic formulary that, it's on paper. I'll give you a better example. There's 4 little carport structures with concrete picnic tables that cost $163,000 or $165,000 to rebuild after Hurricane Wilma on L1 Road. And if anyone's driven by that, that's criminal. There should be a lot of people that go to prison for that. The reality is that it was on the books for that, And I got told, so don't worry about it. You only have to pay 1%. It's 1% of a criminal number. It's a huge fraudulent situation, but everybody's good with it. It's cool. It's legal, so I'm good. But I just think that we ought to look at that program. And to your point, the insurance, those things should not even be insured. If a car runs through them, we'll go after that person that hits them to pay for them. I got a hole in my suit. We'll go after that person to hit them and get it paid back. And if we can't, we'll fix it. But, those are little things that I don't know what that dollar and cents is to our bottom line, but I just think in their magic formulas, we're paying a little bit more of a premium number for that. So,
Just to remind everyone, just for information's sake on the board, we went to a $50,000 deductible a few years ago for our liability insurance with PRM. So anything that is valued, to your point, with the L1 canal and the picnic benches and all that. So we have liability on those in case something
Yes, ma'am.
from that perspective. But from a property perspective, anything that's $50,000 or less, we're not paying premium on. So we're self-insured basically up to that amount. And so the principal amount on the first year was about $350,000 that we saved in doing that.
350K, is that what you said?
Correct.
First year.
And that was about 3 years ago, I think. Yeah. So just to remind, and we can go out to bid and we can look at that and we can ask them if it's something you would like to see we'll get new premiums, but we can also say, okay, we would like a $25,000 deductible, a $50,000 deductible, $100,000, whatever your tolerance level is, so we can kind of mold that to where we think we might want to be from a self-insured perspective to try to save additional dollars.
Yeah.
But Jennifer, even if your deductible is higher, it makes your premium lesser, but if it's lesser, it's going to make it higher, so, And then I remember Charles talking about trying to bring down the Medicaid, Medicare. What happened to the current care facility that we was talking about bringing in, where to keep people from going into the emergency room? We was working on that in the past, so do something to bring down the Medicaid, Medicare.
It would be interesting to see what the numbers are in cross comparison with I think this is the
Critical care,
Healthier
that's what I was
Henry
gonna say.
County Health Coaching Program, and we've not received an update, I believe, this calendar year yet. I do need to circle back with Rick Griffiths and the Henry County Health Coaching Program and see where we're at on our current numbers and how does that compare with usage of the emergency room as a primary care facility versus those that have gone through the program and started using a primary care physician as properly as possible. So I'll get that update for the board and find out where we're at with it. But I do know there's a legislative issue on how things are calculated based off of that migration. So there could be enrollees that have increased that offset what was actually being migrated over. So we need to take a look at those two numbers to find out what's going on.
I bet you it'd be a big difference. You say we looking at increasing $100,000 this coming year? So
134.
134. So I just think that we need to try to find a way if we could bring it down, different facilities. It might cost us one way, but it'll bring us down another way. So
Let me ask a question of the board. I want to know where the board falls on P3, begin process of identifying methods to upgrade/replace the jail and courthouse. I hear this getting more momentum than not getting momentum. And that's through the grapevine. And I just want to know where we're at, because I think y'all know where I stand. I don't see us growing at such an exorbitant amount that we need a bigger facility. I think, you put $2-3 million into this facility, and you're looking at a pretty nice Cadillac in respect to where it's at today. And I'm just wanting to know where that's at, because that one always scares me.
when you bring that up, it feel like we contradicting ourselves. We didn't want to go in and patch anymore, so we have to make up our mind. Either we're going to go in and fix it or we're going to patch it, to make sure that we don't have to come back later on, patch the roof, and then you have to put a roof on it. So we just got to make up our mind, is that a priority to go in and patch it or, do it right?
If I can weigh in, Mr. Chair, I think this has become more of a moving target. I think there is still some sort of a desire to see what our current courthouse facilities require, but I would be very hesitant to make any other commitment until we've had a robust conversation about the potential of switching facility locations to see what kind of capacity we have in terms of opening up facility space just by simply moving people from one block to the next. So that's one piece of it. I think the driving piece of all of this was repairs that are required at the jail facility, including the administration portion of the SO's office. I know we've not done a needs assessment to find out exactly what all needs to be done, but I'm sure facilities management has a pretty good idea of what needs to be done. The third part of that is investing in mental health facilities within our correction system. I know we're in the process of working with Elite DNA to get them in a physical footprint in Hendry County on LaBelle's side. But what does that look like in terms of our jail population, knowing that roughly about 50 to 60% of our inmates are return guests, if you will, and that they probably need some sort of a mental health remediation program instead of going through incarceration. So those are all conversations that have been had. Has anything moved off of discussion? No. The only thing that really has grown some legs has been to start looking at what is the expense of possibly relocating the state attorney, public defender, state probation, county probation up into the courthouse and relocating non-judicial related functions to those spaces on Pratt Boulevard.
That'd take care of the courthouse, but it wouldn't take care of the jail.
I'd like to weigh in as well. So this started, however long back, I was on the Public Safety Committee. It's been a while back, and listening to Captain Bastis, it really doesn't get into, and I've heard the term Taj Mahal thrown out there and stuff like that, and that's just not the case at all. There were some essential life services that was failing, such as fire suppression, such as and water quality, and there were some essential life services that was just not working any longer in that jail. Could they be upgraded and repaired? Absolutely. But then part of the crowding issue was stuff like, as we move into the era that we're in, they're taking in a lot of juveniles. Well, you can't put juveniles with the regular population. So they're cleaning parts of closets out. They're taking part of what they use as an infirmary. And they're sticking folks in place where they really should not be sticking folks. So can it be upgraded, added to, whatever? Probably so. But nonetheless, something does need to happen, because I think that we are sitting on a time bomb there to where we are going to be responsible for not providing the essential services at some point in time that's going to cause something bad to happen. If you'll remember, we had, and we were trying about a year ago, I was trying to really champion doing a facility needs assessment. That takes out Mike Swindle wanting to upgrade the jail because most of my family spends a lot of time there and I want it nice for them, or KT not wanting to because you know what I mean? Let's get that out of it. Let's get that funded. I believe some of the FEMA money was supposed to be directed in that direction, but again, tell me when that date's going to happen, right? And so I do believe that there needs to be some real-life feasibility study. Unfortunately, it's going to cost some money. We had some financial commitments from the other entities that were involved in it, and I believe that we could still leverage those in one way, shape, form, or fashion. But I'm telling you that we do need to do that. I'm not caught up on building a new one. I'm caught up on that something needs to be done.
Is there a philosophical desire by this board to move a campus, to have a courthouse/jail located elsewhere in the city of LaBelle's perimeter and or on county property somewhere outside of where we are today?
I don't want to do it for the sake of doing it. I only want to do it if that's the right business model for the well-being of this county and the constituents that are paying us. Does that make sense?
Yes, sir. You're saying that if, in the event a needs assessment is performed and someone tells us this is the prescription/medicine that you should take, Hendry County, this is the best move for you moving forward, then you're willing to consider that option at that time.
That's right, because what they do is they may look at that jail and they'll say, yep, it's going to cost you $3.5 million to upgrade it. Now you've got a 30-year-old jail that you just dumped $3.5 million into. We just put how many millions into a wall that was falling. And so, that's the purpose of hiring a professional engineer to look at it and say, you're putting good money after bad, or no, continue on the course you're going, continue repairing, add another module for your prisoners. You're good here, remove some people out there on Pratt Road, and you're good. then I'm good with that.
And that's why I say we have to, either we gonna make up our mind, or we gonna patch it, or we gonna do it right. And that's one of the things that we said, that we got tired of putting Band-Aids on it, so we just need to make the arrangements for it to happen, if we could make it happen. But if we don't do something, I'm like, Mike over here, that we gonna be in trouble.
Yep.
Swindle.
Well,
That's your name.
I'll just say, I think one other variable that I would love to have taken into consideration is if you left here right now, hopped in your truck and drove over to Glades County, how many people are there? And I'm talking about their jail facility, and how does that all play out, and how does that roll into the master picture there a little bit? And I think that I know that ruffles some feathers. I'm sure it does, but it is something that I want for it to at least be taken into consideration on anything that happens on this. But I'm not hearing anybody say that y'all are all for leading the charge on moving the campus and having this building become a nice parking garage, or that all being this, and this is located 15 miles outside of town or something like that.
I know the language came up in the past. What came up with that? With Glades
With the
County?
Glades County, we did an assessment. I want to say that we got to a point where the per diem rates were exorbitant between the current Glades County per diem rates versus ours. I want to say there was about a maybe $30 or $40 difference, and Chief Deputy Nelson may remember it better than I do. But then the conversation took a different turn as far as a priority for us following through with the discussion at the board level.
I also think that their jail population, well, at one time was almost non-existent, it has since swollen right back to what it was, where it didn't even become an issue that they could be receptive to us.
They're taking in anybody else?
Yes,
So,
sir.
to answer
Not
your
any
question-
other counties are taking in state.
State.
To answer your question and to summarize, I'm not willing to lead a charge on moving or building millions of dollars worth of more facilities until the correct auspice and engineering and everyone gets a chance to weigh in on what is the correct action, be it upgrade and repairs, what has to happen, and where the best use of our taxpayer dollars is going to be.
Mr. Chair, do we think that item, the process of identifying methods to upgrade, replace the jail and courthouse, no matter how reactive or detrimental it is to the pocketbook of Hendry County, do we think that rises to the level of number 3? Where are y'all at? I am probably odd man out. I've got to have some more convincing to know that that's where it's at. But like I said, I have not gone through the jail. I have not been in any conversations with our sheriff in quite some time as it relates to this process. And I am in no way, shape, or form trying to say that HCSO is not doing their job. I'm just saying this has not been on my radar. So I don't know the status of those things. And so if this is something that we need to make it a front-burning item, while I would much rather see county tax dollars go to building a school or doing something proactive with adult ed or something like that, I understand these are unfortunate realities of the world that we occupy. So I'd love to hear what y'all think.
Well, when you get it back, you're going to have a long checklist. Then you're going to have to go out and bond it or borrow the money and make payments on it.
I'm not doing that. I'll get unelected before I bond a jail.
Well,
And I will campaign my tail off to make sure that any other commissioner that runs on building a jail, on terra firma or anywhere else, doesn't get elected.
where are you going to get the money?
I'm not building a new jail.
No,
I'm not
I didn't
doing
say
it.
build a new jail.
You said bond a building.
No, to repair the jail.
Oh, no, I think we can repair it. I think we can repair it on our dime.
I don't know if we can do that. You wait till you get it back, if they do a study.
Let me weigh in. These buildings
I've
are
been dying
block
for
and
you.
mortar. They're not wood. They're block and mortar. They can be repaired. Is it going to be expensive? Absolutely. But the fact still remains, what we have can be utilized for another 20 years. Would I love to have a new car tomorrow and go out and buy a brand-new Bentley? Yeah, but I don't need one. I can make what I have work. So looking at this, and honestly, I've been speaking with the facilities director because I knew it was coming into budgets. I haven't been in facilities for 2 years, so I want to know, where are we at? What are we looking at? So the fact is, I believe dollars are going to be well spent to put this facility back to where it needs to be, put that facility to where it needs to be, and then use that money other places where we actually need it. Do we want that? A lot of people want it. We don't need it. We need to work on necessity. We are not at a place where we're willing to raise taxes. We're cutting taxes. We're not at a place where we're going to borrow money. I'm not borrowing money. If I can't buy it, I don't want it. So to answer your question, no. my sitting here to tell you that I believe this facility can be utilized, repaired. We're looking at a couple different things now. I spoke with several people, but I will say that we've got a couple people that are using their time on this that would be much more valuable to Hendry County if they were doing what they were supposed to be doing and we actually had an engineer or an architect. Our engineer has got so much he's covered up, but he's looking at buildings. That's not what Shane doesn't build buildings. No disrespect. That's not what he does. But yet we cover him up daily with this stuff, so he can't get to the ports. He needs to look at building the materials for roads, for driveways, for drainage, but he can't because we got him bogged down looking at a dadgum courthouse. Our facilities director is the same thing. We can get his opinion and ask him what we need, but in order to put that on his back, it's not fair to him either. He's a facilities director. He takes care of the maintenance of the facilities. I've got a list here that we'll copy and make and give to you and every one of the commissioners. These are things that they feel are priority. This building is not in that disarray. The chiller, okay. But on the same token, let's look at putting 2 small units here so we're never dead in the water again.
Done as can be.
Same thing with the jail. The jail, they just replaced 4 compressors. I think to the tune of about $45,000. Well, the other half needs to be replaced. So why, before we do that, why don't we go ahead and upgrade, put a small unit there? When it's dead in the water again, we're not, because half the unit's still going to air condition the jailhouse. Do all these buildings have issues? Yes. Do a lot of people want new buildings? We can fix what we have. That's my opinion.
If there's not a consensus on the board to even look at a study then I say I have no problem supporting the fact, let's focus our efforts and energies and resources toward repairing what we have.
Mr. Swindle, the only thing I would tweak to what you and Commissioner Will said would be, what if you find a happy medium in that where you have an engineer that comes through and does an assessment, does an in-house assessment, a structural guy, Commissioner Wills, that looks at everything and says, we're going to take what we have, we're going to look at heads and beds, all the different services and all that stuff. But to your point, I mean, you can go vertical in the same footprint. You can hollow out a column and pour concrete and put steel, and there you go. So all of those variables, I think that's much more in the wheelhouse of what our county can afford. And I hesitate to use the word a proactive approach, but it's a much more tolerable
Do
approach.
anybody know when the last survey was done on the jail?
Well, we went through it. Captain Bastis has all that information, and they have to do them annually, and they have to get certified and stuff like that. But correct me if I'm not wrong, Charles, Jennifer, and gang, that I believe that was part of the FEMA. Are we not scheduled? Didn't we request a needs assessment? So
It's on our LMS, and that's something that'll be coming back to you.
What's LMS mean?
Local mitigation strategy.
Okay.
And so we have a list, and it's quite large, and it's not just for the Board of County Commissioners, it's for the cities, and it's for other entities like Glades Electric's been involved and different folks. And you have to go through a process of ranking these projects and your needs, and it's more for hurricane resiliency type of thing. And if it's not on this list, then you can't get certain grant dollars. So it's real important. We've been making a great effort to get everyone involved, including the school as well, to get their needs on this list. And it'll be coming to you for final approval. And all these things we're talking about are on this list. So the feasibility study is on the list, the projected, and it's a number. It's an estimate just for sake of being able to apply for a grant of repairs on the facility, as well as all our other needs for the current facility that we're in. Because regardless of whatever is decided to do with this facility or a new facility, this facility, in my mind, it's always going to be here. We need to fix it. We're going to use it. So we need to be able to repair this one as well. So that's on there. That's on there too.
So is that, you got to wait on FEMA?
It's not necessarily a waiting game on FEMA dollars. This is federal funds from a variety of different departments that are affiliated with this program that has to deal with resiliency and local mitigation. So it's not all coming from FEMA. It could come from Health and Human Services. It could come from Department of State. It could come from Department of Interior. The local mitigation strategy list is, for the lack of a better term, a bureaucratic step to say that we put some thought into this process. We had a public input process.
Check the box.
And we've literally not made this decision in a vacuum.
Yeah.
But that's, wait.
August is a deadline for HMGP money, and then
Everybody hear that?
CDBGDR, disaster
HMGP,
relief,
the CBDGR.
is also
We know
later
that.
in the summer. So we're prepping to be able to apply for those in the next few months.
And you have no idea when you're gonna get your FEMA money?
That's correct.
Huh?
That's correct.
So, yeah. I think the original question, Commissioner Turner, was, do we feel comfortable where P3 it is? And I think that we, at least in my mind, I am comfortable where it is, because we do need to give that attention in one way, shape, form, or fashion, be it repairs, be it life, life safety upgrades, chiller units, or whatever, in whatever means that may be. Even if we were to get all of this going and we decided we wanted a new facility, that's years in the future. So this would have to be done one way or the other.
We need to know.
Could I ask that we wordsmith that, just instead of say upgrade/replace, to identifying repairs and what needs to be upgraded to current standards?
You the one that typed this? I don't care.
I understand. This was based off of last year's board
okay.
vote, so I want to make sure that you're okay with it being repairs as being first, and then any necessary upgrades because of,
Yep.
I don't know, maybe they've got T1 copper wiring in there, and we really do need to put Cat 6 in for, or fiber optics in for, information tech, but just
I
think
understand.
along that line.
And if it's a liability, we need to, need to go ahead on and move on this, because we've talked about it last year. That means it's getting a little bit worse for this year.
Mr. Chair, do we have, like, if we were to ask for a report on our ambulance fleet in comparison to, going back 4 to 5 years, you have all of those details. If I were to ask you today, Ms. Davis, if you were to grade our fleet from A to F, are we a C minus, a B plus? What's your spider senses telling you? And then do we need to be identifying a method to acquire another ambulance yesterday?
So we're probably a B minus. Because the new purchases are doing great, but then we still have some of the ones we were talking about, the special detail, that weren't part of the 5. So we have 5 ambulances, 3 and 2, always roaming. And then we have 3 for special detail. So the 5 that you were asking about, the cycle earlier, Commissioner Harris, is so when one falls off, we pick another one up. And so we're doing good there, but because we still utilize, and we do have breakdowns, even on some of the newer ambulances, it happens, and they're in the shop, we have to use some of those old ones. We need to work on that. That's why we're looking at trying to trade a couple of them in for a new one, but still be able to cover everything we need for special details. So we're in much better shape than we were, but I'd say we're probably still a B minus.
Well, I know that was a process that Commissioner Harris was adamant about. We were not going to be in a situation where somebody didn't have an ambulance that was coming en route to get somebody right now, and I appreciate you for leading the charge on that, Commissioner Harris.
It was an F 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah, it
We had
was.
ambulances breaking down with folks in them.
Yeah.
I remember one day 2 of them passed me being towed back.
Right.
This is a red flag. I called you that day, and you're like, one's en route, literally a brand new ambulance is en
Well,
route.
we're doing real good. That's a big improvement.
It's an improvement, but we still have a little work to do.
Mr. Chair, I wanted to ask Ms. Davis also, or Charles, I hear rhetoric, and I don't know if there's any validity to it whatsoever. Do we have a situation where we have an ambulance that is ready to be in service, but we do not have qualified employees to meet the ability to utilize said ambulance to bring a service to constituents?
Sometimes.
Sometimes.
So we have EMTs and we have paramedics, and we right now are down 5 paramedics. We have 2 that were scheduled to be tested today. We have 1 being credentialed hopefully by the end of the week, and so that's potentially 3. But on any given day, you have an item before you that I talked a little bit about turnover with our ambulance department, that we've had about a 50% turnover in the last 12 months. We have a lot of people from out of town who come as needed. They drive 2.5 hours to work. So as soon as something is available where they live in their venue, and they are able to get paid more on an hourly rate than what we are able to pay, then they they get jobs in those areas. And so we're working on the hourly rate. We're working on some other things. It's not always just about pay. There's other things that you can do to try to retain and bring in folks. And so we're working very diligently on that.
But you're always short, right? Normally? You never have a full crew, do you?
No, not as of late. We have not.
Chair, if I may, this is also the reason why we started the in-house training program, where you come in as an EMT, and if you're testing well, you make it through your probationary status, and you want to become a paramedic, that we are in partnership with the Training Academy, and we'll help put them through that process to grow our own EMTs into paramedics that are from Hendry County. We've had some success with that. I want to say 3, maybe 5 of our current medics that have stayed with us. The other 50% are homegrown, but it's a brand-new program, and it's trying to get it over that tipping point of volume right now.
Can you, when you do that, can you tie them in for a number of years?
I believe there's an agreement with that, yes, sir. For their certificate.
And just a quick FYI there, Miss Amy Perez, who is one of the superstars that we have on that team, she also teaches at LaBelle High School and teaches that and has students gaining the certifications that need to be on the entry level, and she's turning them, and I think there's going to be a great pool of talent for the county for homegrown from high school on.
Mr. Chair, I think we need to challenge staff to identify, I don't know what the numbers are. I don't know if it's a $5,000, it would be a huge hit, 10,000 or whatever it is. But I think we need to identify some finances, and we need to go to what you're talking about right there and say, this is an incentive-based, program. We're going to start you out at X, and look at it. I mean, it's a quick phone call. I think right now, guys, if you're just in Lee County, you go from like 12 base here to $16 an hour over there. You're working an 8-hour shift versus 24-hour shift here. That's a little bit of a quality of life difference, So that's why I wanted to ask and see if we can look into that. And I think any suggestions that y'all wanted to bring back to us as a board, I would definitely consider.
Are y'all doing that, Kevin? On local? We're trying to do it?
I mean,
He's got 9.
and it's the same thing, isn't it, Deputy Nelson? It's the same thing, Chief Deputy. Y'all are having that problem. Our education system is having that problem. I mean, it's everywhere. It's essential services through and through. We're not on an island by ourselves with just ambulance drivers.
And one of my goals is to make sure that we do a better job connecting, because the best and brightest talent are leaving our school systems, and we're not capturing that pipeline.
And that's where we need to be at.
And so I'm going to do my best to make sure that that's realized.
There is a national shortage for EMTs and paramedics.
Yep.
We're not the only ones experiencing that. We did last year put about 10 local folks through an EMT class. They were a lot of them were firefighters, and they paid themselves. We didn't subsidize it in any way, but we provided the facility to have some folks from out of town come to Hendry County, and that made the difference, the venue, so they weren't having to drive to Fort Myers. So what Commissioner Swindle's talking about, you're doing that within the high school. So right now we're fully staffed for EMTs, so that speaks volumes, in my opinion. And then we've taken 3 last year of those EMTs of our EMTs, and we put them through paramedic school. So that's what we're trying to do to fill the gap for the paramedic vacant positions.
Every county is short on teachers. You can call your county today. Need them in Immokalee, everywhere.
But nurses too, the thing of it is that
Nurses,
it's
too.
a gap with that generation, and not only Henry County, but everybody responsible that we're not making sure that gap is filled, and that's why they was doing different things to try to teach people different trades and training, because the older people are retiring. There's nobody to step up and fill in the gap.
Last 2 things for me, Mr. Chair, and they all kind of tie together. The rebuilding of the general fund and unrestricted reserves, is that the same thing as the hurricane disaster relief dollars and cents? No, it's a completely different animal. Okay, I just wanted to confirm that. Well, I'd love to just see a report whenever you get it out to us of where that one has been chronologically as well, and where it is today as it relates to the hurricane disaster relief fund. My blood pressure isn't up nearly as high as it used to be in relationship to that issue, but I do want to know how we can lean on FEMA to try to get that reimbursement process expedited, but obviously, I mean, we're in a boat with a lot of other people, so.
What did we take out of that, Jennifer? Was it,
Well, we were just, and the clerk and I were just talking about it before the meeting as well. So we've paid out about 2.5 approximately. We have another about $500,000 that you just received today or yesterday.
Yeah, I'm asking for approval tonight at the board meeting of $519,910.94 to send out tomorrow.
Is that all going to one contractor?
This is all for debris management.
Yes, ma'am.
So that's a little over $3 million just for debris.
Okay.
so is all
Where would
that
that leave our fund?
And
500,000. How much? 500,000.
40? So is all that reimbursable?
it is not 100% of it. There's a waiver, and so we will get back the majority of that. For the debris management, we also have Category B expenses that we will get back a few $100,000 for that. And then, of course, we've got some dollars out for repairs, and then insurance repays that amount, and then FEMA will pay 2%, which is our hurricane deductible. Just to clarify, the $50,000 deductible I was talking about earlier does not apply to
Hurricane damage,
It's
yeah.
2% for hurricane damage.
None of it's 100%.
So,
Right.
and I personally, and I know this is not the question you asked, but I would like to inject it. I do believe that this has to be a priority of this board to do what we can to put some funds back into that. Because when are we going to get the money back? We don't know. When are the folks getting reimbursed from Hurricane Matthew, which is 24 months ago? Some now, some not. We got 500,000 left, and there's a tropical storm bearing down on the Yucatan Peninsula today heading our way. That's a pretty scary situation.
That also doesn't include the 10% that we have retained from Ash Brett.
Yeah.
So you're talking another $350,000
So folks,
that we're going to owe.
folks, this could be a bad situation if we don't account for that in this incoming budget.
Mr.
We was gonna pay so much a year back out of the budget, back into it, till we paid it off.
Well, but that's not even relevant towards the hurricane, though. I mean, that was just what we borrowed to balance the budget
Yep.
from a millage perspective.
Right.
On the Fund the Road Resurfacing and Improvement Program, because I know we're bearing down on time. Shane, I would just love to know, what's the schedule currently? A picture speaks 1,000 words. I don't know if we have a map or the ability to, even just from a graph standpoint, of how many miles, where we're at, what is our responsibility from a county perspective, and then what is the chronological timeframe associated with repairing said roads?
We have a 12-year plan. We're in year 2. The roads that are scheduled to be paved this fiscal year are in what we call South LaBelle, Sunshine Acres, down by Davis Pratt Park, and Huggett's Road. And then they vary from $250,000 to $300,000 per year, and we try to group them.
That's in-house through gas tax. That's
Through
no
gas-
scrap or scop.
There's no scrap or scop, in-house gas tax, and they just jump around the county. Not to be, it doesn't cower to a commissioner, it cowers to a need of a local area, and we minimize mobilization costs and tried to focus on doing the roads in one
Shane,
neighborhood.
listen, I love it, man. I'm going to tell you right now, to echo a little bit of what Chairman Wills was saying, I think you do a masterful job of the finite resources that we have, the balancing act, having to deal with Commissioner Harris wanting everything done in his district all the time only. I don't know how you balance all of that, but you get it done, and it's awesome. The only thing I would like to see you do, and I hope that Ms. Hunter can help you with this, I think that the general public needs to see you facilitated getting Flaghole Road done. You facilitated, you've told me Henry Isles Boulevard is on the, it's on the hit list. There are other things that are happening in my district. 835, where it's been from a chronological time frame. I think y'all should do that. Those are success stories of Hendry County, and I don't think that y'all do a good enough job of telling your story. And as it relates to not using gas tax, it's locally, it's scop or scrap, but you're really engaged in that program, and thank the Lord Representative Spratt got that thing created, and we're able to still feel the effects of it today at the magnitude that we are. But I just think that you're doing a good job, and I think we need to tell that story, and I'd love to see that time frame associated with all the
I can
roads.
work with Emily and come up with some stories for like 78 Flaghole Road, where we cobbled together different funding sources and gas tax to make them happen. But the roads in year 2 are not getting paved until we do some drainage work. We had some pipe orders come
That
in.
superseded things.
We need to get that done to get the pipe work in, so we don't tear the asphalt up, and then we'll.
So
Pave it.
what you're talking about, you're not talking about DOT money.
Talking about gas tax money.
So DOT would be for Fortino Road, Floyd Drive.
We're using those for the main arterials, collectors, rural connectors, where it benefits the greater good.
Have you already applied for the next round?
We apply every year. You see the priorities, and I bring them to you, and we send them out.
5 years out.
Because don't it take you maybe a year or two to get an answer? Or?
We get an answer about funding every year. We've already got roads scheduled out. And within the 5-year plan, we got several projects on 835, another one on Fortino Road.
We got Fortino Road and 78.
We got one on 78. We got Cowboy Way from 29 westward to 80.
Yeah.
We got Fortino Road from Bridgeway on the west leg back to 80. We got 2 or 3 on County Road 835. We got a guardrail.
He doesn't want to hear about 835. He's only worried about
We
Fortino.
got curves on 835, and we got guardrail projects on 835 and 833.
I think for the sake of time, if I might, Mr. Chair, is we could send out the 12-year paving program for our gas tax so that everyone gets that list, as well as a link or a hard copy of the 5-year DOT work program so that you can see everything that's going year to date and the next 5 years out from DOT. And that should get you the comprehensive list of both cities, the state, the county, et cetera, in one shot.
We get a chunk from DOT.
To add one last thing before we close, it's gonna be a big number. So everybody take a deep breath. Fortino Cemetery hadn't been touched. Won't be long, we're gonna need lots.
Yeah.
You're gonna be looking at, once again, it's gonna be one of those situations, people are gonna say, you've known this, you worked on it, you just stopped working on it.
Wait, I'm sorry, can you clarify? We're gonna need
No
more,
cemetery.
we're gonna need to add
We're gonna need
more
lots.
cemetery
That new
lots?
cemetery has not been touched in several years.
To expand, you mean?
There's,
Is that what you
the
mean?
funds have been taken away, yes, because the old
Okay.
cemetery is about full.
Oh, okay, okay.
We
We
do
don't
have,
start soon, you're not gonna have lots, just so everyone knows. I mean, we're looking at anywhere from, I was speaking with someone today, and I'm not gonna throw them on the bus, but $250,000 is gonna get you started, but $750 will go a lot longer to getting at least a quarter open.
Wow.
So it's gonna be phases, so something to keep in mind, that cemetery is almost full, which Ms. Butler she can echo that.
Even with the changes that Ms. Butler made,
It's still growing,
Yeah.
still growing.
That was just a
up.
management,
And
that
that's
was
the
a
only
pest management
cemetery
piece, yeah.
Hey, that's-
on this
that's
side of the county.
Mr. Chairman,
Not a drop in the hat.
when you say those numbers, the 250 to 750, is that acquisition of land that we don't have today?
No, sir, that's developing what we do have.
So we own it. We just got to get it right.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
What did,
It's
All right, we'll pull that way in. Okay.
what did, you gotta clear it? Is that what you mean?
It's cleared, it has to be developed.
You
It has
see,
to
look
be-
at me.
the South Florida Water Management has quite a few different things they
Oh.
require. Then we have some
We can get that
turtles visiting that have to be evicted and relocated.
Where's Tommy Vaughn?
He just meant mitigated. He didn't say evicted. He's not evicting
I was
any
just going
tortoises.
along there, so-
You know, and
But that's just something to keep in mind, like, you know.
Yes,
like I
sir.
said, that's-
it is 20 acres. Right?
It is.
But what you're saying is don't sit on it. We need to start looking at that.
We need to do it in phases.
might
We
wanna,
need to start, yeah.
that needs to be added to the list.
That's right.
And I'll throw another one on there, and I'm putting words in their mouth, but I think y'all all will agree. And because of the state of where we are today in our nation and in our community, hardening and safety has to come up on the list as well. It's not even on the list right now, but it has to come up on the list. On an average year, y'all know that our sheriff always needs more because he has growing expenses and things cost more money. I've not had this conversation with him or Chief Deputy Nelson, but I'll guarantee you there's more being asked. We are asking more than with regards to what's going to change that are going to take place at the courthouse, the school systems, and there's still nothing on here to account for that. So I don't have a number. I probably shouldn't have put that wasn't prompted or asked, but I'm telling you, to keep our folks safe in this facility and others, we're going to have to consider that as an expense as well.
Mr. Chair?
It's not there.
I know I make light of too many situations. I say this with all seriousness. I have not thought about that subject. I thought we had a great conversation about it, where you all were saying we're sooner than later. I have purposely, and this is going to be the last time I talk about this type of an issue publicly, but in all of the articles and in all of the studies that I've read on copycatting, and it scares me to the depths of my soul. So it's something that I'm removing from the vernacular. These people are being I think that there's people out there that are listening to us right now that are on the razor's edge of doing something bad or doing something good. And thank the good Lord that we have solid law enforcement people that take care of us. I completely concur with what you're saying, and I'm hoping that staff will engage that conversation as aggressively as you want to and bring something back to us in an expedited fashion. I 100% agree with what you're saying, and I know that y'all are working on that. I know that's something that is not on anyone's radar right now. I know that it's a front-burning item, so y'all do that sooner than later, because we do. We've got to protect the lives of our people, and it's crazy to hear what our school system has to contemplate now and what we're having to contemplate with regards to that.
There is architects working on that, just so you know. It
Yeah.
has moved, but staff has already begun to move forward. Architects are working on that, so they're being vigilant. They are working on it.
Terrible.
Chair, I know it is 5:01 and we're technically out of time for the workshop. However, I still need to ask for the board's official position on what millage rate or what philosophy towards the millage rate. do
Are we
you
at
need to see?
8.49? I think we're roughly 8.5. I would love to see it at 7.49. 1 mil reduction is mine. That's what I want to see. Build your budget off of that.
That's for 1 mil too.
I'm sorry, what was that?
1 mil.
Looking at 1 mil.
Reducing 1 mil.
I'm following Commissioner Harris. I love it.
Well, look, and again,
I thought you said
just in the notes that I have, look, let me start where I am real quickly, and I'll do it quickly. I won't take long. And then I want to wind back up agreeing with you, or with all three of you, in the best way that I can. Just taking notes on the things that we've all sat here and agreed that we see as priorities and the things that we have to do as a board, and still reduce. You know, you're looking at 130,000 Medicaid, FRS going up, disaster relief at less than $500,000. We're one crack away in a wall. We're one storm in the basin today that's bearing down on us. Autopsy is now going out of hardening and safety, doing life safety things we have to do in jail. But if we can do that, if we can do those things and protect our citizens and do what we have to do so that we're not kicking the proverbial can of repair and keeping the doors open and cut a mill, I'm in with you. But if the staff comes back and says, and I know there's a lot of time between now and having all the data in front of us with regard to the millage rate and the sales tax information, if we get that back in and we're so far over and we've got excess funds and we can do that, I'll second the motion. I'll move the motion. I'm with you. But I'm not willing to sacrifice the safety of our folks. I'm not willing to put folks in our jail without a fire suppression system over them at night. I'm nervous as I can be now about disaster relief. We're close to being a broke county if we had one thing hit us over this coming weekend with the storm that comes. So, if we can maintain the business and we can make sure that we're doing our job judiciarily as possible for this county and reduce a mill, I'm with you.
Only thing I have to contradict you on is we're close to being a county that has bad debt today because of that lady right there, and because of that lady right there, and because of this knucklehead that we have to our left, and the people that have sat in these chairs. We've had to raise the millage, and I fundamentally disagree with that, even though I'm a registered Democrat. We've had to raise the millage a couple times. I still think that this county has done a good job of being fiscally minded and not putting ourselves in a bad debt situation. So I do hear what you're saying. I think that we have to set the tone, Commissioner Swindle. That's what the people put us in these chairs for. Set the tone, give our staff the concept where we at. Every year when we sit in these budget discussions, we say, he ask us that question. What do you want to do? Oh, yeah, go back with the same millage rate and look at the rollback rate. The rollback rate, well, if it's less, we can never utilize it. If it's more, we ought to implement rollback. That'll be the most conservative request that you get from staff. I love y'all to death. I'll go to bat with you. I'll even jump in a foxhole with some of y'all, not all of you. I think some of you might knife me. But I just think that we ought to really set the tone of reduce it a mill, see where it lands. You're exactly right. And then from there, have a discussion.
I would love to reduce the mill, but I'm like him. I would like to wait and see what the value of the dollars are that come in, and if we can do it, but I found out by doing a little research and by talking to the person that actually do the accounting that if we stay where we are, our taxes gonna go up, and if we don't do anything, then we're still in trouble. So I would love to see us roll back only if we can come up with a number that we can still accommodate what you need to accommodate with. But I wouldn't do it if we cannot accommodate. But I do know we're gonna have to roll back, and I'm gonna say the reason why is because if we stay where we are, and we don't count, we're not able to count the taxes that's coming in, the taxes are still gonna go up.
Well, we also been dependent on that 1 cent. The 1 cent was never intended to balance the budget, but we used it.
Yeah, so we're actually way above 8.5
Just
mils.
don't wanna see us in the red, I think
We're
we.
running at 8.49, was really 9.49.
Yeah.
We was using 100% of it.
I just think we need to make sure we use some wisdom before we do roll back to find out first what the numbers are, before you jump up and do roll back. I would love to see it go down, but I will wait and see what we have.
Everything is better, and we should have more coming in
If
this
that's
year.
so, then I'm grateful to be able to do that.
Chair, if I can just echo the direction that I'm hearing, and that is, you would like to see the recommended budget come back to you with a rollback rate contemplation and to look at a breakout section of what a 1 mil reduction looks like at 7.4909.
Correct.
That's what it sounds like, yes, sir.
Is that what I've heard from the will of the body?
That is the will.
Okay, thank you.
A 5-minute
Good
break?
to adjourn, or?
Can we take a 5-minute break?
Yes, sir, we're gonna take a 5-minute break.